middle of page Yud Zayin. Adam l'olam eno omed. The human being never stands still. He's always on the move.
Human being never stops.
Ain't called b'shara. B'shara is compromise. There's no compromise between the two possibilities of freedom of choice. As the Honorable Vilna says, the person is either growing up to a higher level or descending to a lower level. And who is called the Beinoni, the person who is in the middle? It means his situation constantly changes, sometimes up, sometimes down. He is alternately a saint and a sinner. Or v'chol rega, at every moment. He can't really be in the middle. He's either got to choose to be a saint or a sinner, to follow the conscience, the voice of Hashem, or for us who know the Torah, the voice of Hashem, which comes through the Holy Torah, the Holy Bible. According to that, he's either a saint or a sinner. Now, one of the major disciples of Rosalanta was Dessler Kelm, and he says as follows: the impressions that come upon a person, they frequently come together. There's no moment that can pass over the human being without there being an impression upon him. I mean, the subconscious impressions that come even when a person is asleep or dreaming. But of course the major impressions come when a person is wide awake.
Yes.
So when a person's position, it changes for the good, for virtue, and he's looking at things through let's call it, through the spectacles of his conscience. And let me put it this way: we shouldn't think that if we've got the Torah, we can forget about our conscience. On the contrary, the inner conscience of man, which is really the power of his neshama, of his holy soul, it has to be developed and applied through what we learn from the Torah. This is expressed by the sages when they say the mitzvot were given to purify the human character. That's what lies behind the specific mitzvot. We can even say that we have the example of the mitzvah of the Torah. For example, you should be holy. What does it mean you should be holy? So here the Ramban, he develops this summons of Hashem, mentioned quite a lot of times. In the Chumash, mentioned constantly by the prophets. It means that when we fulfill whatever areas of life and we think we're fulfilling the mitzvot, by keeping to the letter of the law, but we might be transgressing Kedoshim. He says there can be a person who's a naval, a corrupt person, but a shut Torah. And he says the Torah allows me to do it. And in fact, this is the term used frequently in the Gemara of false Perushim, brought also a lot in the New Testament, the Pharisees. There were Pharisees, originally, they were the ones who kept a higher level of strict observance than the ordinary people who had received so much knowledge, were not so strict in their observance. So these Perushim, they're referred to in the Talmud and also some historical writings like Josephus as a very high level. But even the Gemara has a whole list of false Pharisees, false Perushim. In other words, they may go around in rabbinical garb, even the time of the Talmud, and they may be experts in being able to even recite by heart the whole of the Mishnah, let's say, but they're still corrupt people on their level in any case. And in fact, even there's a statement of the Gemara, these false Perushim, they destroy the world. People who seem to be religious, but their behavior is corrupt. One example is, we've discussed also, I think you can have people who will be dishonest. I mean, someone's give the example of what happened in New York a few decades ago, where, when I was there as well, it was dangerous to go through certain areas in New York, the Harlem area. And I was warned, and I had to take note of this warning. I went around with a James Bond case, and if you took the subway and you saw there's some like strong fellows, you better get out of this compartment and find if there's a compartment where there's a policeman, because there were freak cases, these strong thugs going up to a person. A person with especially frequently targeted people, like perhaps the messengers raising money for important institution, or sometimes the businessmen, and they'd say, they'd go up to them and say, listen, you give me your case, your James Bond case, got there. If not, we're going to bash you up. So what did they do? There was a whole area like that. It's very risky to be in the streets as well. So at the time, the mayor of New York and others, they got together. What did they do? They trained a lot of non-Jewish policemen to be able to speak a bit of Yiddish, about Yiddish, and they went around even with a streimel, and they grew a beard, and they went, of course, and sometimes they went with a James Bond case. The thugs come up to them, they take out their gun and arrest them right away. But the truth is, they managed to clear it. It's amazing. I think there was There's an Italian mayor, I forget his name, who says, my aim is to abolish these thugs and criminals. That's one of the things that use. In other words, a person can dress up as, you know, almost like Hasidic Rebbe, and really is a non-Jew. Yeah. Also happen. Because the other way as well. There can be people who, you know, who on the outside, oh, they're very saintly. But when it comes to having dealings, let's say in business, they get up in tricks. I mean, unfortunately, it keeps on happening. There are some people like that. So these are the false Purusha. The purpose of the mitzvot is to develop the inner man through outer means. And the sages say, that's why it says, "V'samtem et varai ele." You should place these words of the mitzvot al vavchem al nafshechem. We say it a few times a day in the Shema. So the sages say, "V'samtem," sam. What is sam? Sam is an elixir. Samachaim is an elixir, a drug that gives you tonic, that helps your health. But it also means a poisonous drug, sam. So the word sam is kind of besamim, or spices. And when under the communists, I spent the Shabbos in Moscow. And on that Shabbos, the person who's now an important member of the government in Israel, Yuli Edelstein, he conducted classes in Hebrew in his apartment. Also sometimes taught a bit of Torah. And on that Shabbos, when I was there, the KGB came to him and they picked up the besamim. There were these, we know these besamim are samim. Samim is the usual word used today for drugs. People are addicted to samim. That's how you say it in modern Hebrew, because it's really the same root. So the Torah can be a samachayim, a samamavet. It can be an elixir of life, it can be poisonous. It depends on how you use it. Do you intend to use it for good or for evil? So that's what the Ramban says. It says in the Torah constantly, the whole purpose of the mitzvot, the whole purpose of giving us every aspect of the Torah is to teach us to pursue virtue, and from the external habits to bring us to the change of our inner character, to pursue virtue instead of vice. So in this, the person has to constantly recognize that life is a struggle in man also between good and evil. And everyone his level is given tests. A person might have worked his way up, that it's impossible for him to steal, to tell lies, and to murder. So what do the sages say? You think, because you've inhibited against murdering people, as most of us are, we're listening here. But it's also inhibited against stealing. However, do we recognize the fact stealing also includes, for a person, especially at a high level, to disturb someone's sleep? This person needs to sleep for his health and his activity, and you disturb his sleep, even by mistake, because the sages say a person of a high level, he should train himself not to make mistakes, disturb someone to sleep. Here you're stealing something from someone which can never be repaid. If you stole an object, you can repay it, but here you're stealing, because they like China. So, work on yourself. You might say you couldn't kill anybody, But the sages say, anyone who puts his fellow man to shame is like killing him. We learn from different sources. Elul. And they say, someone who's arrogant and proud, goes around in a pompous manner, he says, okay, if a person is so proud, he might think, and often, that I'm the one and only, and it causes him to forget Hashem. The sages go further, they say, Kol HaMitka'eh is they're serving idols. In other words, you didn't transgress direct adult, but for your level, it's self-worship. It's arrogance and pride, frequently. The person's got to analyze what it's doing. And the same applies to putting someone to shame. You're ignoring his inner self, his inner character. And it's well known, unfortunately, that if a person feels he's being put to shame in a very painful manner, it can be such a pain. There are many people, because they don't want to live if they're put to shame by those who previously honored them, they commit suicide. It happens. It brings them to that level. So be careful, don't put people to shame too much. Assassination of character, it's even called. It's very difficult for some people to be able to overcome. So this is the purpose, you can say, of Musa. In other words, Musa is the way in which a person takes as his basic text. He doesn't really take neither the Gemara nor the Mishnah when he's really applying Musa. The major text is my character. I'm going to try to analyze what are my weaknesses and how can I overcome them. If sometimes a person can be a big expert in ethics. He can be a professor at the University of Ethics. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be a kind person. He just knows all the ethic philosophies. And even a person who is a big expert in the ethics of the Torah, and even translate them, doesn't mean to say he's going to be a good person. Sometimes it says, I deal with the academic analysis of some of the great giants of ethical teaching. How do you apply it to yourself? That's the question. So this is an explanation of the verse, which we started. The path of Hashem, it's really the straight road to saintliness. Tzaddikim use it, the great road. The Poshem, person who ignores it, he stumbles in the fact that he's using the mitzvot, which are in the straight path, but not with the right intention. Not with the intention to improve his behavior. So this is very important aspect of our learning program. And I want to say, I think it applies to many of us in yeshiva. It certainly applies to me. Because the sages say that if a person is a teacher of Torah and the students don't take much notice of his requests in Torah matters, it shows that he himself is lacking in Yirat Shamayim. So I'm certainly lacking in Yirat Shamayim. Because I have asked many students, they should participate in the Musa Shiurim. And I see the Musa Shiurim given at night are generally attended by a more advanced student who doesn't need them. Who's himself an extremely saintly person. He's partly a teacher, but he likes to keep on learning. A very saintly person. Much more than I can reach. But he goes to the Musa Shir. Well, it's also something. But it's intended, it's very important for every student to have a Musa Shir. There's different choices in our yeshiva, but the majority of the students, they ignore it. And I see also in practice that they don't improve their behavior. And that's very bad in our yeshiva. That happens. Because about the tshuva, we know in the month of tshuva, we'll try to improve our behavior. And some of the people who need it most, they use it least. So we're all going to work in this direction. Do you have any comments?
Regarding a mitzvah, which is a commandment, is usually associated with a good deed. It depends on the frame of mind, not the action.
Could you speak somewhat louder? Can you speak louder, please?
Okay, I'm sorry. A mitzvah, which is a commandment,
Yes.
which is associated with a good deed. But there are two aspects to it, the thought and the action. Many people will do a mitzvah unwillingly because they're commanded, they believe by God, to do such and such a thing. For instance, a contribution. Rationally, no human being should give up his money to a stranger or to someone else. So he does it unwillingly in order to fulfill God's commandment. So is that now a mitzvah because the action was done, but there's some sort of reluctance to doing it? I really don't want to do it, but I don't want to be punished. I mean, most people, do they do mitzvahs willingly with a pure thought and then follow with an action? Or it's, I don't want to do it, but it looks nice, and that kind of thing. So,
look, this is a good example is charity. So certainly a person who just gives the money to a poor person or to an institution, whatever, because he feels that's what God wants him to do, he doesn't feel like doing it, he does it only in fear of punishment, or maybe sometimes being put to shame by others who are giving, they say, why don't you give? That is a good deed, but a low level of motivation. But the Torah intention asks us to do this is that a person should get used to becoming a giver. No, the child is the father of the man. You want to get children to get rid of thinking that everything belongs to them. So you've got to train them, you say if you'll give, I'm giving you a lot of nice candies to take to kindergarten, but I want you to, you can have one bar, and maybe it's 5 bars, the other 4 you should give away to the others. If you do that, I'll give you a prize. Okay? You shouldn't do it because of the prize, but you get the child used to the concept you've got to give. Not that everything that you like is there for you. You've also got to learn to give to others. And when we grow up, we've got to do the same. So the way of the Torah is, through the action, to improve the character. Where do you see it? Quite clearly, in last week's Parsha. So I spoke about this before, but I think let's apply it immediately. The Torah says, shortly after the Decalogue, that in your social life, you've always got to help your enemy's animal that you don't really want to help. Certainly, you've got to even help if it's stranded in the street with the animal. You've got to help your enemy. So Hashem says, I know you don't like to help your enemy, but I say you should do it. It's my commandment. Do it. Because it doesn't. The fact that he's your enemy, you don't like him. He's someone you don't get on with. But it's your duty to help him when he's stranded in the street. And also his animal suffering. And he's suffering. In fact, they say how much more so if it's not his animal, he himself fell down the street. He's the enemy. Help him. Or if he's lost his he dropped his wallet. Yeah. So you shouldn't think, I'll pick it up. Yeah. Help myself, take it for myself. No. Even as your enemy, give it back to him. You know who he is. There's a story that has been printed, going around quite a bit. It's of a girl was brought up not very religious at the time. Today also some not yet religious Jewish girls, and also Jewish boys. They're attracted to the gurus of the Far East. So this girl came from a Jewish family. So they didn't keep much of Judaism, didn't know much about Judaism. And I think it was he who could even go from Israel, that story. And she fell in love with the guru. Yeah? And the guru proposed they should get married. Non-Jewish guru. And this girl went to a seminar, she was brought to a seminar, and there was supposed to have been a speaker of the seminar. The speaker didn't show up. So at this seminar, there was an Avrech who'd learned Torah, and he was not really one to be a lecturer. He couldn't speak to these not yet religious groups. So what did he do? He gave them a synopsis with questions and answers on the laws of returning lost articles. He described how the Torah says, you've got to give back lost articles to your enemies. Anyway, she went out with this guru. She says she's not becoming religious. She wants to marry out this guru, and she goes for a nice long walk with him, and they find a wallet in the street. They're discussing the future life, how they live together. He follows Lama, I don't know, some Eastern religion, Tibetan religion. They're supposed to be also very moral. And while they're walking, they pick up a wallet with money in. So this guru picks it up and he says, I'll never find out who it is. No, not bothering. He's left it here. Not going to bother to find out. So I've got some, so I'm keeping it. So she had a whole argument with him because she learned all about in this talk of hers, you know, about Zashoza. So she had a whole argument, it led to a big argument, as a result of which she said she can't get married to such a person. He was a spiritual giant, a guru, gives advice and so on. So the Torah says, give to your enemy. And the same subject comes up in last week's Parsha. But there are lots of other aspects of returning lost articles. And there it doesn't say your enemy, it says your brother. So the question is, why in Mishpatim, which comes straight after the giving of the Torah, it says your enemy, and here when right at the end of the Torah it says your brother? So the answer is, the purpose of the Torah's laws on how to treat other people, their possessions, and how to treat your enemies, is able to transform your enemy into your brother, if you keep to it. In other words, to recognize that we are here, we're all brothers, and we should give up hostilities. So therefore, this is the way of the Torah. The Torah allows us to improve our relationship to other people, to overcome our inner feelings we don't really want to give. We've got to learn to give within limitations. You shouldn't give, a person should not give away all his wealth, which some religions advise, because then he'll come onto other people. And he'll come back and no, but he should certainly give something if there's someone in need, wherever he is. So this is the way of the Torah. Through action, to improve one's behavior, one's habits, and through their habits, if they go in the direction of giving, of pursuing virtue, then ultimately a person will learn to become one who pursues virtue. Okay, we have to stop now, ready? To be continued.